By sheer association, I recall now an experience of my early youth. Let me give you the background of that experience. I was then about 8 or 7 years old. I attended, it was in a small town in Russia, White Russia, on the border of White Russia and Russia proper. The town was called Khaslavich. I certainly have never heard the name. My father was rabbi in the town. I, like any other Jewish boy, attended the Cheder. My teacher was not a great scholar, but he was a Chassid, Chabadnik, whose expertise in the study and the teaching of Gemara was then under a question mark. I, as a young boy, questioned his scholarship. Now I know, I don't have to question. I stopped doubting. I'm sure that it was a poor Gemara on it. However, I've been grateful to him for all my life, because he taught me something which no one else. Perhaps there is one exception, my mother. He taught me something which no one else taught me. Namely, he taught me he didn't train my mind, but somehow he addressed himself to my soul, to my heart. He taught me how a Jew can be imaginative in religious matters. Imagination in religious matters, in practicing Judaism. Many people practice Judaism, but they lack imagination. They lack swing. They lack depth. He taught me how to practice Judaism, Torah mitzvahs, in an imaginative way. How to see, I would rather say, how to behold the vision. Not many Cheder Jew boys knew what a vision is, and not many knew how to behold a vision. He taught me how to dream and how to experience Yahadus, how to feel Yahadus, how to live Yahadus. Not just to practice, but to live Yahadus. The experience, the episodes which I'm about to relate to you took place on a murky winter day, about in January. I still remember the day. It was a cloudy day. It was after the Hanukkah festival had passed. It was partially Yiddish. And with the Hanukkah festival, somehow passed the little solemnity and the little, what shall I say, I have to use your Yiddish word, Yontivdikkeit, which this festival has brought into the monotonous and listless lives of the poor Jews, most of them were peddlers, in that small town on the river Sorge. Just to remember the name of the river. As far as we were concerned, boys from the Cheder, a long, long winter lay ahead. It was a winter, but we had to get up while it was still dark, and we returned home from the Cheder with a lantern in the hand of each boy, because it was dark in the streets. And that day, that particular day, the whole cheder, all the boys were in a depressing mood, listless, lazy, and sad. We recited, or I would rather say chanted, mechanically, the first psukim of Parsha Vayigash. In a dull monotone. We were simply droning the words in Hebrew as well as in the Jewish vernacular. And so we kept on reading mechanically, Vayigash Elav Yehuda Vayemer Bi'adini, and then Yehuda came near unto him and said, Oh my master, Yidavar Me'avdecha Dover Be'eznei Hadini, let thy servant, I pray thee, speak a word in my master's ear, Vayichar Atcho B'adini, let not thy anger burn against thy servant. And Adini Shoal es Avodav Leimer, and my master asked his servants, Ayesh Lechem Rov, Eyoch, have you a father or a brother? Vaneimar Adini Yesh Lanu Ov Zokin, V'yomet Skunim Koton. And he said unto my master, we have a father, an old man, and a child. And I permit myself to use the interpretation of the Targum Yerushalmi. Skunim was born when my father was old. But Yomet Skunim means a talented boy, a talented child, a capable, talented, bright child. We have an old father, and we also have a talented child, a little one. And then, when the boy who learned mechanically finished reading the question and the reply, Ayesh Lachem Rov, Eloch, and the reply, Yesh Lanu Ov Zokin, V'yomet Skunim, the Rebbe, the Melamed, something strange happened. The Melamed, who was half asleep, while the boy was droning on the words in Yiddish and in Hebrew, rose, jumped to his feet, like a lion, like a tiger. He leaped to his feet, like a tiger. With a strange, enigmatic gleam in his eye. He usually had velvety blue eyes, but suddenly his eyes were pierced, they were piercing, and somehow investigating eyes, searching eyes. He motioned to the reader, to the boy who read, to stop reading, turned to me, and said, and he used the word, Pod Ravim, it means assistant to the rabbi. Whenever he was excited, he used to address himself to me with this title, assistant to the rabbi. There was a tinge of sarcasm and cynicism in his using this term, because the Melamed the Chabadnik could never forgive me the fact, the crime, that I was born into the brisk house which represented misnagdes at the highest level. I must say, I cannot accept responsibility for that. And he said to me, what kind of question did Joseph ask his brothers? Hayesh Lechem Rov? Do you have a father? Of course they have a father. Everybody has a father. The only person, I remember he had it, the only person We have no father. There's no wish. But Kol Bo'elam, whoever is born into this world, I mean, has a father. What kind of a question? I answered, Joseph, I tried to answer, I didn't get me. Joseph meant to find out whether the father was still alive. Yes, do you still have a father? It means he's alive, not dead. In such a case, so the Malamed thundered back at me. You should have phrased this question differently. I mean, to argue with him was useless. And he began to talk. He did not address himself to us, to the boys anymore. The impression he gave was as if he had been speaking with some mysterious visitor, a guest, who came into the cheder, into that room. And he kept on talking. Joseph did not intend to ask his brother about what he called it, that time it is, then later I discovered it is a Chabad term, Avus Dis Galian, parenthood or fatherhood, which is open, visible, but about Avus Dis Cassian, about the mysterious fatherhood or parenthood, the hidden parenthood, invisible fatherhood. In modern idiom, between you and me, in modern idiom, I would say he meant to express the thought that Joseph inquired about existential parenthood, not biological parenthood. Joseph, the Malamed continued, this father was anxious to know whether they feel themselves committed to the makor, to the origin. Whether they are origin conscious. Many people are not origin conscious. He wanted to find out whether they are origin conscious. Are you, Joseph, as the brother, rooted in your father? Do you look upon him the way the branches or the blossoms look upon the roots of the tree? Do you look upon your father as the feeder, as the foundation of your existence? Do you look upon him as if he were as a provider and sustainer of your existence? Or are you a band of ruthless shepherds who forget their mocker, their origin, and travel and wander from place to place, from pasture to pasture? Are you, he suddenly stopped addressing himself to the strange invisible visitor and began to talk to us, raising his voice. Are you modest and humble? Do you admit that the old father represents an old tradition? Do you believe that the father is capable of telling you something new, something exciting, something challenging, something you didn't know before? Or are you insolent, arrogant, and willing, and you deny your dependence upon your father, upon your makor? Yesh lochem och, exclaimed the Malamed, pointing at my study mate. I had a study mate. That time in town they said that he is the new prodigy. He was stupid, I'm between you and me. But anyway, I had the reputation of a prodigy. I had the reputation of a slow child. He had the reputation of a prodigy. So he turned, it was called Yitzchak the Schmied. I mean, his father was a blacksmith. Well, what? What do you say, Yitzchak? The prodigy, it was very hard to find out whether he meant it. See, he was serious about it, he was sarcastic. What do you say, Yitzchak the prodigy? Who knows more? Yitzchak? Because he knows 150 blood Gemara by heart? Well, that's what I was. He didn't know a single page by heart. 150 pages of Gemara by heart? Or his father, Rabbi Yaakov the Schmied, Jacob the blacksmith, who can hardly read Hebrew, who can hardly daven. Who is it? Are you proud, Yitzchak, or are you humble? Are you Shlachov, or you have no father? And then he added in a whisper, if a Jew admits the supremacy of his father, right here, a factor, he recognizes also the supremacy of the universal Father, who is very, very, very old. Hatik Yemin. Almighty is called Hatik Yemin. Old in years. Le'olam v'adenu. This is the experience I have. I've never forgotten it. Employing this approach, you may say it was a symbolic interpretation of the question, but it was a nice approach. Employing this approach to Joseph's inquiry, the way that Maimon did, we may also interpret the second question, not Ayesh Lachem Ov, but Eioch, Ayesh Lachem Ov Eioch. Do you have a brother in the same manner in which the Melamed interpreted the first question, Ayesh Lachem Ov? Yesh Lachem Ov, he was not interested if you had a brother or not, a biological brother who inherited the identical genetic codes from their parents. I mean, it's completely irrelevant, Mr. Joseph, according to my Melamed. Joseph wanted to know, does your time awareness encompasses just the present or the future as well? Does your time awareness or your existential awareness, we do exist, we exist, I exist, you exist, we exist, just, does this awareness embraces just me and my friends, my parents, my children, or this awareness, I exist awareness, embraces generations unborn yet? Or do you plan not for the world of today? It's too late to plan for the world of today. Do you plan for the world of tomorrow? There's still time to plan for this world. Which for the world of tomorrow, which is enveloped in the mist of non-being. Do you behold the vision? Do you believe in the improbable, that the improbable might happen? Do you believe in the fantastic, that the fantasy may turn into reality? Do you believe that the future can be... Yes, or not, okay. You yell at screen. Yes, Master. We do have a very old father in whom we feel that we all are deeply rooted. And by being rooted in him, we feel as if we were rooted in eternity and in infinity. In the oldest of all fathers, in the Hatik Yemin. Yellow school cotton. Yes, master. We also have a wonderful, young, healthy, bright child, with shining eyes, vivacious, pleasant, representing the world of tomorrow. We have the feelings. When we take a look, when we glance at the child, at the baby, as if he, this little child, is challenging us to make the birth of generations unborn yet possible, and to help non-being emerge as something real. Yes, we have.